we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to First Post Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. China appoints a new trade envoy as the world's second largest economy refuses to back down against Trump's tariff onslaught. Diplomat Li Chenggang has previously served as Beijing's ambassador to the World Trade Organization. Israel renews calls for a total blockade on humanitarian aid to war-torn Gaza. The country's defense minister, Israel Katz, insists that the ban is a key pressure tactic against the Iran-backed Hamas group. Serbia is set to form a new government on Wednesday, led by a political newcomer. It comes after mass student protests forced the previous administration to resign, following a deadly railway disaster in 2024. Countries seal a historic deal on future pandemic response after years of talks aiming to fix mistakes made during COVID-19. The accord came during a late-night session at the World Health Organization headquarters. And Lebanon bans Disney's upcoming Snow White live-action film over the casting of Israeli actor Gal Gadot. She has been Lebanon's Israel boycott list for her ties to the Israeli Defense Forces. Hello and welcome. Our top focus today remains on Sudan. 2 years into a brutal civil war, the country now stands on the brink of a formal divide. Sudan's paramilitary, the Rapid Support Force, or the RSF, has announced a parallel government to the rival of the army-backed administration that it is battling. The RSF, led by Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, the former deputy to the General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, declared the formation of the Government of Peace and Unity as the war enters its third year. In February, the RSF and its allies signed a charter in Kenya, proclaiming a parallel government in areas under their control. Its charter talks about a secular, democratic and decentralized state with a new national army to replace the existing military structures. But the RSF is not alone in this government. Its new administration includes multiple armed and political groups, some of whom were earlier allies of the government. It also includes civilian politicians who once served in Sudan's 2019 transitional government. No country has yet recognized the RSF's new government. On the contrary, regional heavyweights like Egypt and Saudi Arabia have openly rejected it. On the battlefield, the balance has begun to shift. The Sudanese army has recaptured Khartoum and is pushing back RSF advances. But the RSF still controls vast territories, particularly across Darfur, Gezira, and parts of Kordofan. As the RSF announced its parallel government, the United Kingdom hosted a major conference to mark 2 years of the Sudan war. The summit, co-hosted by the African Union, European Union, France and Germany, brought together key stakeholders including the United States, Kenya, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, Türkiye and the UAE. But absent from the table were the warring parties themselves. The conference failed to produce a joint agreement or to establish a contact group for ceasefire. Diplomatic disputes between Arab powers, particularly Egypt, Saudi Arabia and the UAE, blocked consensus on a final statement. As per reports, officials struggled to find neutral phrasing acceptable to Egypt which maintains ties with the Sudanese army, and the UAE, which Sudan accuses of arming the rival RSF. Now, Sudan has dragged the UAE to the International Court, accusing it of aiding the RSF and being complicit in genocide. The UAE has been accused of secretly supplying weapons to the paramilitary groups in Sudan via Chad, a charge it strongly denies. However, for the first time, Saudi Arabia and Egypt have publicly distanced themselves from Abu Dhabi's alleged role. Now, this highlights growing tensions between the Gulf powers over Sudan. A deeply divided international front is further hampering the path to peace. As per estimates, over 150,000 people have been killed in the Sudan conflict, and more than 14 million are now displaced, marking the world's largest displacement crisis. As RSF declares a new government with no international recognition and a resurgent army on the offensive, its future remains deeply uncertain. Unless a political solution is found, Sudan risks not just continued bloodshed, but permanent fracture. Now, to discuss this further, we have with us Mohamed Alyson, who is the director of the Sudanese Center for Policy Studies, joining us live from Cairo in Egypt. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Alyson. Thank you for having me.
Now, Mohamed, what are the potential implications of the RSF's declaration of this government of peace and unity for Sudan's territorial integrity and its political future?
Yes. So basically, I think it will just formalize the status quo, where we have areas of control between the army and the RSF for almost 2 years, more than 2 years now. We are entering the third year of the war. This areas of control between the two parties will be formalized by the creation of RSF of its parallel government. Of course, a direct challenge to the national unity of the country, and but still, as you said, the political legitimacy of this parallel government will still be in question in the near future.
Yes. And how might the RSF's move alter the dynamics of this ongoing conflict with the army-led administration under General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan?
Yeah, I think the real intensity now, and it has been for quite a few time, will be around al-Fashir. Al-Fashir is the capital city of North Darfur state, which is still controlled by the army. The RSF is trying very hard to capture al-Fashir to complete its control over Darfur, the whole of that Darfur region, which is a very large part of the country. They recently captured a major nearby refugee camp. It's called Zamzam, and that resulted in grave violations, atrocious violations, including the killing of 9 humanitarian workers there from an international NGO. Al-Fashir, as I said, is the last army-held city in Darfur. And I think it will be crucial for the RSF. They really want to have some sort of geographical integrity in Sudan to capture al-Fashir. Of course, for the army to make that harder and to try to defend the Sudan unity, they will defend very hard around al-Fashir city. I think the real danger that Sudan is facing regarding the long-term unity of the country is not really what's happening in the ground. It's more of the polarization, the hate speech, the rhetoric that we have been following by the two parties around the ethnic base, targeting of individuals, of civilians, attributing them to one of the warring parties based on their ethnic background, their tribes. And that is the real danger, of course, along with the external support that have somehow turned this war into full-fledged proxy war right now.
Yes, absolutely. And on that, what role, if any, are the regional and of course the international actors expected to play in response to this latest development? And how might it influence the diplomatic efforts to end the war?
So I will start that it will be very, very hard for any recognition, any regional or international recognition of the RSF announced parallel government. It's very hard. We have never seen that in the AU, for instance, or the African in regional bodies. The African Union is, as I said, is highly unlikely because of a lot of the international legal criteria required for the recognition of states and the AU principles. But it remains that the major risk will be that this step will make the pathway towards peace much, much harder. Especially now we will see the supporters of the warring parties taking much more firm positions, as we have seen in the London conference yesterday, where they failed to reach a consensus point even for a contact group. So I think this new reality will need a different approach towards bringing these two warring parties together. And I think we need to consider speaking directly with the warring party supporters. Particularly, we know that the UAE, evidenced by a lot of UN reports, have been heavily supporting the RSF, and I think they will fully sponsor this new parallel government. And we need to have direct calls with the backers of the RSF and the SAF, UAE, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. They need to be much more involved, directly involved by the international community in the talks ahead regarding the efforts to stop the war in Sudan.
Right. Mohamed, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Shifting focus to Tunisia, where hundreds are protesting after a school wall collapse that claimed the lives of 3 students in a small town. The incident took place in the central Tunisian town of Mazouna. A dilapidated school wall collapsed, killing 3 teenage students who were preparing for exams. 2 others were also seriously injured. Now, Mazouna is located around 70 kilometers from Sidi Bouzid, the birthplace of the 2011 revolution that toppled the longtime president Zine al-Abidine, sparking the Arab Spring. Now, more than a decade later, public outrage against the authorities continues. Hundreds gathered near Mazouna National Guard post to demand justice. Residents blocked roads with burning tires, smashed a government vehicle. All shops and schools in the area were closed, and protesters chanted against social marginalization and demanded the dismissal of local officials.
Where is the municipality? A wall so threatening should have been secured with wood while they waited for a solution. Why did they leave it like this until these children died? Local authorities must be held accountable.
Today, we are holding those responsible accountable, and I know very well who they are, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister, to reveal all these failures and address them.
Authorities have launched an investigation into the incident and have arrested the school principal. Now, President Kais Saied has called for greater caution to prevent such painful incidents in the future. But for the demonstrators, this tragedy symbolizes the deepening crisis in Tunisia's public services. A powerful Tunisian trade union has called for a nationwide school strike, protesting what they call is a failure by authorities to find real and serious solutions to save public schools. As per reports, protests have also erupted in the capital of Tunis, where hundreds of young people took to the streets, raising anti-government slogans and demanding the resignation of the president. Last week as well, similar rallies took place, with demonstrators accusing President Kais Saied of authoritarianism and calling for the release of political prisoners. Now, these rallies underscore growing concerns in Tunisia, a country once hailed as a symbol of hope during the Arab Spring. And moving to South Africa, the country that is embroiled in a diplomatic standoff with the US. Since Donald Trump's return to the White House, ties between the two sides have frayed. To salvage the situation, South Africa has named a new special envoy to Washington. Mcebisi Jonas has been roped in with a difficult task ahead. He is going to be in charge of rebuilding the fractured relations. But even before he gets off, he is facing backlash. Now, some earlier remarks that Jonas made about US President Trump are now creating trouble, and the remarks date back to 2020. Now, shortly after Joe Biden's election victory, he had made a speech. He used some strong terms to criticize Donald Trump. Jonas labeled Trump racist and homophobic. Adding to that, he said the Republican leader was a narcissistic leader. Jonas said this was while reacting to Biden's presidential win and called it a watershed moment for America. Now, 5 years later, his comments have come to light. South Africa's new special envoy, Jonas, has just taken over previous ambassador to the US, Ibrahim Rasool. Jonas's controversial comments bring another layer to a spat that has already seen some of the nastiest twists. Now, Trump has singled out South Africa since coming back to power. In February, Trump signed an executive order freezing most of Washington's aid to the country. Trump slammed South Africa's land reform as white and anti-American. Now, last month, Trump's team expelled South Africa's ambassador. He was also expelled due to some anti-Trump remarks. Envoy Ibrahim Rasool was evicted after he criticized Trump's policies. The US top diplomat, Marco Rubio, called him a Trump hater. Then came Trump's sweeping tariffs on South African imports. These affected key sectors of Pretoria's economy. It rocked trade ties with the citrus sector, fearing unemployment. Now, Trump's administration has also condemned South Africa's actions against Israel at the International Court of Justice. The genocide case brought by South Africa has led to further diplomatic friction between both the countries. As Jonas comes under the spotlight, he now says he wants a healthy working relationship with the US. Jonas has expressed his intention to repair ties. Still, the road ahead won't be easy. As both countries navigate these tense chapters, it remains to be seen if diplomacy prevails over political differences. And our final story tonight takes us to Kenya, where a case of a wildlife trafficking bust is doing the rounds. But it's not the kind you'd expect. The case pertains to ants, some of the royal ones. At least 5,000 of them were hidden away in thousands of highly modified test tubes and syringes. Among the 4 culprits, 2 were Belgian teenagers, 1 Vietnamese and 1 Kenyan. All of them are now facing legal trouble. The ants in question are the giant African harvester ant. Now, they're also known as the mesocephalotes. And now these creatures are highly sought after. They are the largest of their species and can grow to impressive sizes. The queen ant alone can reach up to 25 millimeters in length. Many individuals who love exotic animals keep them as pets. It's said that each queen ant can fetch $130, making them gold mines for many wildlife smugglers. The suspects had packed these ants in over 2,000 makeshift containers, specially designed to keep them alive for nearly 2 months. Now, the end goal was to ship them off aboard to pet markets around the world. However, the plan didn't materialize. Before the teens could smuggle the insects out of Kenya, they were caught red-handed.
We did not came here to break any laws. By accident and stupidity, we did. And I know breaking laws is for criminals, but I don't feel like a criminal. I know that part of breaking the law is suffering, and I accept that. I know, as I said, We are not criminals. We are 18 years old. We are naive. And I just want to go home. To start my life.
Now, the two of them have pleaded guilty, but said that they were collecting the rare ants just for fun. The total value of these ants was estimated to be over $7,500. The Kenyan wildlife authorities described it as a landmark case. In a statement, they said that this quote-unquote biopiracy, and they said that the removal of such species from the ecosystem can have ripple effects. For Kenyan wildlife authorities, the focus has always been protecting larger, majestic animals like lions or elephants. But with increased security, the focus has shifted to smaller creatures. Rare spiders, beetles, or bugs are now the new victims. The exact number of insects involved is yet to be ascertained. The suspects are due to be sentenced on the 23rd of April.
They'll be remanded in prison. The exhibits produced to be returned back to the court, to the IO for safekeeping. We see each other on the 23rd, all right, in the morning.
The case has prompted renewed calls for stricter surveillance. When it comes to the conservation of biodiversity, it doesn't always mean running after the big beasts. Sometimes the tiny ones too need attention. And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.